Well, I'm joined now from Tel Aviv by Michael Oren. He's the Israeli Deputy Minister for Diplomacy in the Prime Minister's office and used to be the Israeli ambassador to the United States. Good to have you on the Newsmakers, sir. As a diplomat, when your army kills at least 17 people, protesters, over the weekend, it's not a good look. Was it a massacre?
It most definitely was not a massacre. Keep in mind, Hamas is not like any other state. Hamas is a terrorist organization. It is committed to Israel's destruction. The so-called protest was not designed to bring about peace. It was designed to break the border and to kill Israelis. And Hamas didn't make any attempt to dissemble this, to hide this in any way. And it was willing to use civilians and to infiltrate armed terrorists with the civilians to break through the border. All of those killed, all of them, were picked out by our sharpshooters because they were attacking our soldiers. 11 of them are officially terrorists of Hamas. So these aren't innocent protesters. These are armed terrorists trying to kill our civilians. We have to protect ourselves.
Is there any evidence that they were armed and an imminent threat to your soldiers?
Yes, there is. And 4 of them attacked a tank with guns. We have automatic weapons that we took from them. Another 4 placed IEDs, roadside bombs, to kill people. They were using these civilians as human shields, as Hamas has done repeatedly in the past.
Wait, hold on. So were they civilians as human shields, or were they terrorists, or were they both? I'm struggling to follow.
No, the terrorists are using human shields. Listen, this is not the first time this has happened. Hamas took over the Gaza Strip in 2006. They fire rockets from inside civilian areas. They build tunnels under civilian areas to attack us. This is their modus operandi. This is how they operate. They use children. They sent a 4-year-old girl up to the border on Saturday to deflect fire from their terrorists. This is what we're dealing with.
But how do you know that the intentions were to send the girl as cannon fodder? Again, how do you know that the intentions were to send the 4-year-old girl as cannon fodder to be killed by your soldiers?
Well, the girl was not killed by our soldiers because our sharpshooters are very good. Let's be clear about that. Again, everybody who was killed, all those killed on the other side, were engaged in active hostilities against our soldiers, and 11 of them are actually listed by Hamas and Islamic Jihad as armed members of their organization. So these are not innocent protesters.
Okay.
And the head of Hamas in Gaza,
you say your
Sinwar, said openly that the purpose...
You say your sharpshooters are really good.
Let me finish, please. That the purpose of the protest was so that the demonstrators could go over and eat the livers of Israelis. Eat the livers of Israelis. Now, if you had that type of terrorist on your borders who's going to eat the livers of Turks, would you expect your army to defend your borders?
Do you have any evidence that any soldiers were on the verge of having their livers eaten by protesters with tires?
Hamas has killed well over 1,000 Israeli civilians. Over 1,000. Proportionally, that would be many.
But we're talking about 17 Palestinians.
This is a terrorist organization.
Certainly, sir. We're talking about 17 Palestinians who were killed over the weekend. No Israelis were killed. And if you'll allow me to go through the figures, 1,479 Palestinians injured, including 805 shot with live ammunition.
According to Hamas sources.
So you don't believe the hospital figures from Gaza as well?
I have never believed the Hamas figures. And I have much experience with those figures being grossly inflated.
My point is,
17
you say the sharpshooters are really good.
I'll agree with you, 17 Palestinians killed. But who are they?
You say there's precision. I'm asking you, everyone who was either injured or killed, did they deserve it?
They did not deserve it, but Hamas bears the responsibility for it. Israel doesn't. If Hamas is driving people up to the border and say, go to the border, Hamas knows full well what our border policies are. We have to secure our borders. We have civilians on the other side of that border. Now, I imagine Turkey would understand this.
No, certainly.
You have been bombing villages along your border indiscriminately for a long time.
I know you're keen to bring up the Turkey analogy here, but let me ask you, you say you have to secure your borders. Do you have defined borders?
Is it unfair?
Do you have defined borders?
Oh, we actually have a defined border along the Gaza border. We withdrew
from
Gaza
Israel's borders?
In 2005.
What are Israel's borders?
Israel's borders has one internationally recognized border in Lebanon. It does not have an internationally recognized border to the West Bank. That is under negotiation. It has an international border along the Egyptian Sinai border. Yes, we do have recognized borders, and we have a maritime border. Right now, the only border that is not internationally recognized and supervised is the West Bank border. But we hope that that can be solved in negotiations with the Palestinians. But again, we're not talking about borders, we're talking about terror. We're talking about defending ourselves against terror and what a sovereign state has to do to defend itself against a terrorist state, a terrorist organization. That's perfectly legitimate and in accordance with international law.
If there is dispute over the numbers and over the intentions of the IDF soldiers who have killed at least 17 people and wounded hundreds more, as there is, would you be open to an impartial investigation to find out what happened over the weekend?
The IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, will always investigate itself. And Israel has a world-class and world-respected judicial system. We need no outside judiciary to investigate. And as of today, as of this interview, the IDF has determined that all of its soldiers, all of our soldiers, acted in accordance with regulations, open-fired when they determined that there was an immediate threat to our soldiers, to our borders, and we're standing by that. And by the way, I'll make the stronger point that Israel is actually going to beef up its forces on the border as a result of this recent clash with the Hamas terrorists. And we're going to ensure that the Hamas cannot get anywhere near or certainly penetrate our borders.
Michael Oren, thank you very much for joining us on the Newsmakers.